I woke up that morning to sunlight spilling through the curtains, the kind of soft glow that makes you feel like the day might actually be good. It was my birthday. Another trip around the sun. Another year of grinding through life. I stretched in bed, expecting the usual quiet routine. Coffee. Maybe a mumbled happy birthday from Belle if she remembered. But then I heard her voice, bright and loud, drifting in from the kitchen.
"Good morning, birthday boy,"
she called, and I sat up, blinking, caught off guard. Belle was standing there with a grin, her dark hair tied back, wearing that red blouse I always liked. Beside her was Cameron, her sister, smirking like she knew something I didn't. "Get up, lazy," Cameron said, tossing a dish towel onto the counter. "We've got plans." Plans? That word hit me like a jolt. For years, my birthday had been a non-event. No cards, no cake, just me pretending it didn't sting when Belle forgot, and Cameron didn't care. So this cheerfulness, this energy was new. I rubbed my eyes and swung my legs out of bed, feeling a flicker of something I hadn't in a long time. "Hope, what's going on?" I asked, my voice still rough from sleep. Belle walked over, her smile widening, and pressed a quick kiss to my cheek.
"It's a surprise," she said. "A birthday trip. We're taking you somewhere special."
My chest warmed at that. A trip for me. I couldn't remember the last time we'd gone anywhere together, let alone for my sake.
Cameron nodded,
leaning against the counter. "Yeah, so hurry up. Bags are packed. Car's ready?" I stumbled to my feet, a grin tugging at my lips. "You're serious?" I said, looking between them. Belle laughed, a sound I used to chase after, and Cameron rolled her eyes, but it felt playful, not mean. "Dead serious," Belle replied. "Go get dressed. We're leaving soon." I didn't need to be told twice. I threw on jeans and a shirt, my mind racing. Maybe a cabin up north, a weekend by the lake. It didn't matter. I was just happy they'd thought of me for once. I grabbed my wallet, my phone, and headed for the front door where I always kept my keys. The car was outside, engine humming, trunk popped open with bags stacked inside. I could see Belle's bright yellow suitcase, Cameron's black duffel. This was real. I reached for my keys on the hook, already picturing the open road when Belle's hand stopped me. "Hold on," she said, and shoved something into my palm, a folded piece of paper. I looked at her confused, then unfolded it. My stomach dropped. It wasn't a map or a hotel booking. It was a list. Clean the gutters, mow the lawn, fix the garage light, take out the trash. My eyes scanned, each line sinking in like a punch. I looked up at Belle, then Cameron, waiting for the punchline, but their faces had shifted. Belle's smile was gone, replaced by a blank stare. Cameron crossed her arms that smirked back in full force. "Where do you think you're going?" she said, her voice sharp now, cutting through the air. "This trip is for us, not for you. You're staying here. Be useful." My throat tightened. I stood there, the paper crumpling in my fist, staring at them as they grabbed their bags and headed for the door. Belle didn't even look back. "Have a good birthday," she called over her shoulder like it was a joke. The door slammed. The car peeled out, and I was alone, the list still in my hand, the weight of it heavier than anything I'd ever held. I don't know how long I stood there, rooted to the spot, replaying it all in my head. The cheer, the kiss, the promise of a trip. It had all been a setup, a cruel little game to make me feel small. I'd been married to Belle for 8 years, lived with Cameron in the house for 5, and somehow I'd let myself believe today would be different. I walked to the kitchen, dropped the list on the counter and stared at it. The words blurred as my pulse pounded in my ears. I wanted to yell to throw something, but instead, I just laughed. A low, bitter sound that didn't feel like mine. They thought they'd won. They thought I'd just take it like always. But as I stood there, the silence of the empty house pressing in, something shifted inside me. This wasn't just a bad day. This was a line crossed, and I wasn't going to let it slide. Not this time. I watched the car disappear down the street, its taillights flickering red before vanishing around the corner. The house felt too big, too quiet, like it was mocking me right along with them. I stood there by the window, the crumpled chore list still in my hand, and let the truth settle in. Belle and Cameron had played me, and I'd fallen for it like a fool. My birthday, the one day I dared to hope might mean something, had turned into another slap in the face. I tossed the list onto the coffee table and sank into the couch, staring at the ceiling. How had it come to this? How would I let them turn me into this guy, this shadow of myself who just took it day after day, year after year? It wasn't always like this. When I met Belle, she was different. Or at least I thought she was. Back then, she had this spark, this way of looking at me that made me feel like I mattered. We'd laugh over dumb stuff like spilling coffee on a first date or getting lost on a road trip with no GPS. I'd fix her car when it broke down and she'd call me hero, half joking but half serious. We got married fast, too fast maybe. But I loved her and I thought she loved me back. Then her parents died in that car accident 6 years ago. And everything changed. Cameron moved in a few months later saying she needed family, needed support. I didn't argue. I figured it was temporary. But temporary turned into permanent, and the two of them became this unbreakable team. A team I wasn't on. At first, it was little things. Belle started asking me to handle the bills, the yard, the leaky sink. Stuff I didn't mind doing because I wanted to help. But then Cameron got in on it, tossing out orders like I worked for her. "Fix the Wi-Fi," she'd say, not even looking up from her phone. "The porch lights out again," Belle would add, like I hadn't just spent all day at my own job. I'd nod, grab my tools, and get it done, thinking it was just easier to keep the peace. But the more I did, the less they saw me as a husband, a person. I became the guy who fixed things, the guy who stayed quiet, the guy who didn't matter. They'd sit there at the kitchen table planning their weekends, their shopping trips, their lives, while I scrubbed dishes or mow the lawn. If I ever pushed back, asked for a night out, a say in anything, they'd team up, rolling their eyes, calling me dramatic. "Don't be so sensitive," Cameron would say. "You're lucky we put up with you." Belle would chime in, laughing like it was a joke. Except it wasn't. I'd let it build up. All those years of biting my tongue, I told myself it was fine, that I could handle it, that marriage was about compromise. But compromise isn't one-sided. It isn't being left with a chore list while they drive off laughing, treating my birthday like a punchline. I leaned forward on the couch, resting my elbows on my knees, and ran my hands through my hair. The memory of Cameron's smirk, sharp, smug, like she enjoyed watching me squirm, burned in my mind. And Belle, my wife, the woman I'd promised my life to, hadn't even flinched as she handed me that list. She'd planned it with her, probably laughed about it the night before while I slept, oblivious. The betrayal wasn't just in the act. It was in how easy it came to them, how natural it felt for them to grind me down. I stood up, pacing the living room, my socks scuffing against the hardwood. The walls were covered with photos. Us at our wedding, a trip to the coast, holidays with her family. None of them felt real anymore. They were props in a play I didn't know I was starring in. A story where I was the fool who kept coming back for more. I stopped by the fireplace staring at a picture of the three of us from last Christmas. Belle and Cameron were grinning, arms around each other while I stood off to the side holding a tray of cookies I'd baked. Even then, I was the extra, the background guy. My chest tightened. A hot, angry knot forming there. I'd been silent too long,
swallowing it all to avoid the fight, to keep the house from turning into a war zone.
But this birthday stunt, it was too much. It was the straw that didn't just break the camel's back. It set the whole damn thing on fire.
I grabbed the photo off the mantel and tossed it into the trash can by the couch.
The glass frame clinked against the metal and it felt good, better than it should have. I wasn't just mad at them anymore. I was mad at me, at how I'd let this become my life. As the car's engine faded from my memory, something else took its place. A spark, small but growing, telling me I didn't have to take this anymore.
They thought they'd left me behind, stuck here with their list, their rules.
But they were wrong. This wasn't the end of my birthday. It was the start of something else, something they wouldn't see coming. I stood there in the trashed-out silence of the living room, the photo frame still rattling in the garbage can, and felt that spark in my chest flare up into something hotter, something alive. Belle and Cameron were gone, probably laughing in the car by now, thinking they'd pulled off their little stunt and left me in the dust. The chore list sat on the coffee table like a taunt, daring me to pick it up and start scrubbing their messes like a good little servant. But I wasn't going to. Not today. Not ever again. I grabbed the list, ripped it in half, and let the pieces flutter to the floor. Then I headed to the kitchen, flipped on the coffee maker, and started thinking. If they wanted to play games, I'd play one of my own. A better one. The coffee brewed, filling the air with that sharp, bitter smell I've always liked. I poured a mug, black, no sugar, and leaned against the counter, letting the steam curl up around my face. My mind was racing, picking apart the morning, their smug faces, the way they dangled that fake trip in front of me like a carrot before yanking it away. They thought I'd just sit here, sulk, maybe mow the lawn to burn off the sting. But sulking wasn't what I wanted. I wanted them to feel what I felt, caught off guard, small, exposed. I took a sip of the coffee, burning my tongue a little, and that's when it hit me. A party. My birthday party. Not some quiet night alone, but a real one, loud and full, with people who'd see them for what they were. I set the mug down, a grin tugging at my lips. Yeah, that'd do it. I didn't waste time. I walked straight to Belle's home office, the little room off the hallway she always kept locked when she wasn't around. Except she hadn't locked it today. She'd been too busy plotting her getaway. The door creaked open, and there it was, her laptop sitting on the desk, screen dark. I flipped it open, and to my surprise, no password popped up. She must have logged out in a hurry. I sat down, the chair squeaking under me, and started clicking. Her email was still open. Work stuff, client stuff, all these names and addresses she guarded like gold. I scrolled through, copying every contact I could find. Her boss, her coworkers, some big-shot clients she bragged about. Then I moved to her calendar. Dinners, meetings, social events, more names, more emails. I didn't feel guilty, not one bit. This was mine now. Next stop was Cameron's room. She'd taken over the guest bedroom years ago, turned it into her own little kingdom with clothes piled everywhere and a desk shoved in the corner. Her laptop was there too, lit up. No password either. Sloppy, both of them. I sat on her bed, didn't care if I wrinkled her precious throw blanket, and dug in. Her email was messier than Belle's, full of junk, but I found what I needed. Her boyfriend's address, her work contacts, even some friends she dragged into her orbit. I copied it all, my fingers flying over the keys, adrenaline pumping through me. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about everyone they cared about, everyone they'd lied to, everyone who'd see the truth. Back in my own office, a cramped corner of the basement I'd claimed for myself, I fired up my computer. My email wasn't as fancy as theirs, just a basic account with contacts from my job,
and a few buddies I still kept in touch with. I merged everything. Belle's list, Cameron's list, mine. It was a monster. Hundreds of names, maybe more. I leaned back in my chair staring at the screen and started typing. "You're invited to my surprise birthday party." I wrote, keeping it bright, cheerful, like something they'd send. "Hosted by my loving wife, Belle, and her amazing sister, Cameron. Tonight at 7:30 p.m., our house. Don't miss it. Let's celebrate kindness and family." I added a few emojis, a cake, a balloon, just to sell it. Then I picked out the big guns. Cameron's boyfriend, Jake, who had been on thin ice with her lately, and Belle's Minneson, this hotshot executive she worshipped. If they showed up, this would hit even harder. I read it over once, twice, making sure it sounded perfect, sweet enough to lure them in, vague enough to keep them guessing. My heart was thumping loud in my chest, but it wasn't fear, it was excitement. I pictured their faces, Belle's fake smile cracking, Cameron's smirk falling apart when they realized what I'd done. They'd left me here to rot, but I wasn't rotting. I was building something, a trap, a stage, the chance to turn their game back on them. I hit send, watching the little loading bar zip across the screen. And then it was done. Hundreds of invites out in the world. No taking them back. I leaned back, hands behind my head, and let out a long breath. The coffee was cold now, but I didn't care. I just lit a match, and tonight I'd watch it burn. The house was buzzing by late afternoon, alive in a way it hadn't been in years. I stood in the kitchen, wiping my hands on a towel, watching Miles haul in a folding table, while Trina strung fairy lights across the living room. It was my birthday, sure, but this wasn't about cake or candles anymore. It was about flipping the script. After sending those invites, I'd called Miles, my old college buddy who never said no to a wild idea, and Trina, our neighbor who'd seen enough of Belle and Cameron's nonsense to jump at the chance to help. "You really doing this?" Miles had asked, laughing through the phone. "Hell yeah, I am," I'd said. "Get over here." And they did. No questions, no hesitation. We turned the place into a party zone fast. Miles ran to the store and came back with trays of food, chicken wings, sliders, those little meatballs on sticks people love. Trina raided her garage for extra chairs and dragged over a Bluetooth speaker, blasting some upbeat playlist I didn't recognize but liked. Anyway, I swept the floors, tossed out the ripped chore list pieces, and set up a table by the door with a guest book. Something Belle would have done to look classy. I even found some balloons in the basement, left over from who knows what, and blew them up until my cheeks hurt. By 7 p.m., the house looked good, better than good. It looked like a celebration, the kind you'd see on Instagram with a caption about best night ever. Except this night wasn't for them. It was for me. Guests started trickling in around 7:30, right on time. First was a couple of guys from my work slapping me on the back saying, "Happy birthday, man." Then some of Belle's clients all dressed up like they were expecting a fancy dinner, shaking my hand and asking, "Where's the hostess?" I just smiled smooth as I could and said, "BL's running a bit late. She'll be here soon." They nodded, grabbed drinks from the cooler Miles had stocked, and mingled like nothing was off. More people showed up. Cameron's boyfriend, Jake, looking confused but curious. And then Clark Ellison, Belle's mentor, striding in with this air of importance that made the room shift. "Good to see you," he said, clapping my shoulder. "Belle's outdone herself, huh?" I grinned. "You have no idea." I played the part, moving through the crowd, shaking hands, laughing at jokes. I grabbed my phone and snapped group photos. Me with Miles and Trina, me with Jake, me with Clark and some of Belle's co-workers. Everyone was smiling, clinking glasses, eating the food like it was a real party. And it was, in a way. I stood by the fireplace at one point, holding a beer and
raised it high to kindness and honesty. I said loud enough for everyone to hear,
"Thanks to my wife and sister-in-law for making this happen." The room cheered, glasses went up, and I took a long sip, letting the words hang there. No one knew yet. No one suspected. It felt good holding that secret, watching them all play along. Then, at 8:15, I decided it was time. The crowd was thick, maybe 50 people packed into the living room and spilling onto the back porch. I climbed onto a chair, tapped my beer bottle with a spoon to get their attention, and waited until the chatter died down. "Hey, everyone," I said, my voice steady even though my heart was hammering. "I've got something to say." They all turned, faces curious, some smiling, some sipping their drinks. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a fresh copy of the chore list. I printed it off Belle's laptop earlier just for this. So, this was my birthday surprise today. I started holding it up. Woke up thinking we were going on a trip. Me, Belle, Cameron. A family thing, you know. A few people nodded, still smiling. I kept going, but no, they handed me this instead. Told me the trip was for them, not me. Told me to stay home and be useful. I started reading it aloud. Clean the gutters, mow the lawn, fix the garage light. My voice didn't shake, didn't crack. I kept it calm, clear, letting each word land. The room went quiet. Dead quiet. Like someone had hit mute. Faces changed, smiles faded, eyes widened. I looked out at them, saw Jake's jaw tightened, saw Clark's brow furrow. "So yeah," I said, folding the list back up. "That's why they're not here. They're off on their trip." And I figured, why not throw a party anyway? You're all here because they mean something to you. Or they did. Now, you know what they mean to me. I stepped down, set the list on the table and took another sip of my beer. No one clapped. No one cheered. They just stared. Some whispering, some shaking their heads. Jake was the first to move. He grabbed his jacket, muttered something I didn't catch, and bolted for the door. Clark stayed, but his face was stone. Disappointment, maybe anger. I couldn't tell. Belle's co-workers huddled up, whispering fast, probably texting her already. The air was heavy, thick with shock, and I let it sit there. I didn't need to say more. The truth was out, raw and real, and it was spreading faster than I'd hoped. Miles came over, slapped my shoulder, and said, "You're a legend, man." Trina just grinned, handing me another beer. I took it, feeling lighter than I had in years. My only regret? Waiting this long to stop playing their game and start winning my own. I stood there in the aftermath of the party, the living room still humming with the ghosts of shocked whispers and clinking glasses. The last guests had trickled out around 9:30, some patting my back, others avoiding my eyes like they'd seen something they couldn't unsee. Miles and Trina were cleaning up, stacking plates, tossing empty bottles while I leaned against the wall, my beer long gone warm in my hand. The house felt different now, like it was mine again, even if just for a night. I'd done it. I'd turned their cruel little trick into a bomb that blew up in their faces. And the best part, they didn't even know yet, but they would. Oh, they would. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through the photos I'd taken, me smiling with Clark, Jake raising a glass before he'd stormed out, the crowd laughing before I dropped the truth. I picked the best one. Me front and center, arms out, the room packed behind me with balloons and lights making it look like a real celebration. I opened a text to Belle and Cameron, attached the picture and started typing. "Thanks for the party idea," I wrote, keeping it short, sharp. "You're going to love the guest list." I hit send before I could second guess it, then turned the phone face down on the table. I didn't need to wait for their reply. I could already imagine their faces, Belle's eyes narrowing, Cameron's mouth dropping open when they saw it. They'd think it was a joke at first, then they'd panic. And I'd be here, miles away from their mess, letting it sink in. Miles walked over, wiping his hands on his jeans. "You good, man?" he asked, his grin half-cocked like he already knew the answer. "Better than good," I said, and I meant it. "Need a place to crash?" he added, nodding toward the door. I glanced around, the empty cups, the deflated balloons, and nodded back. "Yeah, let's get out of here." I didn't want to be in this house when they came back, whenever that was. I grabbed my jacket, my keys, and followed him out, Trina locking the door behind us with the spare key she'd had for years. The night air was cool, crisp, hitting my face like a wake-up call as we piled into Miles's truck and headed to his place a few streets over. My phone started buzzing before we even hit the first stoplight. Text at first, Belle's name flashing, then Cameron's. I didn't look. Then the calls started, one after another, the screen lighting up on the seat beside me. Miles glanced over, chuckling. "They're freaking out already, huh?" he said. "Let 'em," I replied, and turned the phone off completely. Silence. Beautiful, perfect silence. We got to his place, a small apartment with a couch that had been my bed for the night, and I crashed hard, the adrenaline finally fading into a deep, dreamless sleep. I didn't need to hear their voices, their excuses. Not yet. They could stew in it. Wonder who'd been there, what I'd said, how bad it was. I'd deal with them later. I woke up to sunlight streaming through Miles' blinds, the smell of coffee pulling me upright. My phone was still off, but I didn't turn it on right away. I sat there on the couch, sipping the mug Miles handed me, letting the quiet stretch out. "You're famous, you know," he said, tossing his phone onto the cushion beside me. I frowned, picked it up, and saw it. A post on X from one of the guests, some guy I barely knew from Belle's office. The photo was the same one I'd sent me in front of the crowd, but the caption hit like a freight train. This man just pulled the most savage birthday revenge ever. I scrolled down. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments. Legend. They deserved it. Who does that to their husband? My jaw tightened. Not from anger, but from something else. Pride, maybe, or just relief. It was out there now, spreading like wildfire. And I hadn't even planned that part. I turned my phone back on, bracing myself. The notifications fluttered in, missed calls, voicemails, texts piling up like a storm. "Belle, what the hell did you do?" "Cameron, you're a jerk, you know that?" Then more from Belle. "Call me back now." I didn't. I scrolled past them, found a few from people I actually cared about. Trina saying, "You nailed it!" And a guy from work. Heard what happened. Respect. But the real kicker was the X post blowing up. By noon, it had thousands of likes, retweets, people I didn't know chiming in with their own stories, calling me some kind of hero. I wasn't trying to be. I just wanted them to feel what I'd felt. To lose that perfect little image they clung to. And now they were. Miles cooked us eggs and we sat there eating, him scrolling through the comments, laughing at the wilder ones. "They're going to lose it when they see this," he said, and I nodded, chewing slow. I didn't need to see their faces to know it was bad. Jake dumping Cameron Clark, probably icing Belle out. Those were just the start. Their world was cracking, and I'd barely lifted a finger after that first move. I finished my coffee, set the mug down, and leaned back. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the guy who got left behind. I felt like the guy who'd won. And I wasn't done yet. I was still at Miles's place, sprawled on his couch with a second cup of coffee when I heard the tires screech outside. It was just past 10 a.m., the sun climbing higher, and I'd been half lost in the quiet, scrolling through more X comments about the party.
The post had hit some crazy number, tens of thousands of likes now, and I was still wrapping my head around it when that sound cut through the morning.
I sat up, peering through the blinds, and there it was, Belle's car, the same one they'd driven off in yesterday, pulling up fast in front of my house down the street. The doors flew open, and out they came. Belle first, her face tight with fury, then Cameron, stumbling behind her, eyes red like she'd been crying. I set the mug down slow, my pulse kicking up. They were back, and they were pissed. Miles joined me at the window, letting out a low whistle.
"Here comes the storm," he said, smirking. But I didn't laugh. I grabbed my jacket, my keys, and nodded at him. "Let's go see what they want." We walked the short distance back to my place, the air cool against my skin, my step steady, even though my gut was twisting. I wasn't scared, not exactly, just ready. They'd seen the photo, the post, the fallout. They knew what I'd done, and now it was time to face it. As we got closer, I saw them at the front door, Belle banging on it with her fist, Cameron pacing behind her, phone in hand like she was texting someone to fix this. Too late for that. The door was locked. Trina had made sure of it last night, and I stopped a few feet away, crossing my arms. Looking for something, I called out loud enough to make them spin around. Belle's eyes locked on me first, narrow and blazing, her lips pressed into a thin line. Cameron froze, her phone dropping to her side, tears streaking her face. "You!" Belle shouted, storming toward me, her heels clicking hard on the pavement. "What the hell did you do?" She got close. Too close, and I stepped back, keeping my voice calm. "I threw a party," I said. "You gave me the idea, remember? Left me here to be useful." So I was her face twisted like she couldn't believe I'd talk back, and she jabbed a finger at my chest. "You humiliated us. My clients aren't answering calls. Clark won't even text me back." "Good," I cut in, and she stopped, mouth open. Cameron rushed over then, her voice shaking. "Jake broke up with me because of you. He saw that stupid list and now he's gone and my job's a mess." She was sobbing loud and messy, but I didn't flinch. "You humiliated yourselves," I said, looking between them. "You handed me that list. You laughed about it. I just let everyone else see what you really are." Belle's hand shot up like she might slap me, but Miles stepped in, towering over her, and she dropped it fast. "You're a bastard," she hissed. "You ruined everything." I shook my head. "You made your own bed. Enjoy lying in it." They didn't leave, not right away. Belle started yelling again about her reputation, her business, how I'd destroyed her life, while Cameron sank onto the porch steps, crying into her hands. I stood there letting it wash over me, their words bouncing off like rain on a roof. I'd heard it all before, the guilt trips, the blame, but this time it didn't stick. I pulled out my phone, dialed the security company we'd used years ago for a break-in scare, and put it on speaker. "Yeah, hi," I said, loud enough for them to hear. "I've got 2 people refusing to leave my property. Can you send someone over?" Belle's eyes widened, her rant cutting off mid-sentence. "You're calling security on us?" she snapped. "It's my house too." I shrugged. "Not today, it isn't." Cameron jumped up, then lunging for my phone like she could stop it. I yanked it back and Miles grabbed her arm. Not hard, just enough to hold her still. "Let go!" she screamed, thrashing, but he didn't budge. "Calm down," he said, voice low, and she finally went limp, sobbing again. The security guy on the line said they'd be there in 10 minutes, and I hung up, slipping the phone into my pocket. Belle stared at me, her face pale now, the fight draining out of her. "You're really doing this?" she said, almost a whisper. "Yeah," I replied. "I really am."
Cameron wiped her eyes, glaring at me through the tears.
You're going to regret this.
She muttered, but it sounded hollow, like she didn't believe it herself. They didn't wait for security to show up. Belle grabbed Cameron's arm, pulling her toward the car.
"We're not done with you," Belle threw over her shoulder, but I didn't answer. I watched them climb in, the engine roaring to life, and then they were gone again, peeling out like they'd come in. Miles let out a laugh, shaking his head.
That was intense, man. I nodded, exhaling slow, the tension easing out of my shoulders. Yeah, but it's done. The street was quiet again, the house looming behind me, and I felt it, the weight of their pride crashing down piece by piece. They'd lost control, and I'd taken it back for good. I stood on the porch after Belle and Cameron sped off, the echo of their tires fading into the morning. Miles was still beside me, hands in his pockets, rocking back on his heels like he was waiting for the next round. "You think they'll come back?" he asked, squinting down the street. "Maybe," I said, rubbing the back of my neck, "but I'm not waiting to find out." My phone was still warm in my pocket from the security call, and I knew it was time to stop playing defense. They'd stormed in here thinking they could yell their way out of this, but I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was moving forward. I turned to Miles. "I need to call my lawyer. You good to hang out a bit longer?" He grinned. Wouldn't miss it. We went inside, the house still smelling faintly of last night's party, beer and fried food clinging to the air. I grabbed my laptop from the basement office, set it up on the kitchen table, and scrolled through my contacts until I found Alicia Chin. She'd helped me with a contract dispute a few years back. Sharp, no nonsense, the kind of lawyer who didn't waste time. I dialed her number, put it on speaker so Miles could hear, and waited. She picked up on the third ring. "Hey, it's been a while," she said, her voice crisp. "What's up?" I took a deep breath and laid it all out. The birthday setup, the chore list, the party, the viral post, the blow-up this morning. I didn't sugarcoat it, didn't leave anything out. When I finished, there was a pause. Then she let out a low, "Well, damn." Miles smirked across the table, but I stayed focused. "I want a legal separation," I said. "Maybe more. I just need out." Alicia didn't hesitate. "Good call," she said. "And we're not just going to separate. We're going to protect everything you've built. You own this house jointly." I nodded, then remembered she couldn't see me. "Yeah, it's in both our names." "Okay," she said, and I could hear her typing. "First thing, we secure your financials, bank accounts, credit cards, anything joint. Then we change the locks. I'll draft a cease and desist for Cameron, too. She's got no legal right to be here. And if she's trying to access your stuff, that's a problem." I leaned back, feeling a weight lift. "You can do all that?" "Oh, I can do more than that," she said, and I believed her. By noon, Alicia had emailed me a plan. She'd already contacted my bank, some legal magic I didn't fully understand, and frozen the joint accounts so Belle couldn't touch them. I called a locksmith from down the street, a guy named Tony I'd met at a barbecue once, and he showed up an hour later with his tools. "Heard you're having a rough one," he said, nodding at the house as he worked the front door. "Something like that," I replied, watching him swap out the old lock for a shiny new one. He did the back door, too, handed me the keys and said, "Good luck, man." I slipped him an extra 20, grateful for the speed. The house was mine now, at least until the lawyers sorted it out, and that felt like a win. Alicia wasn't done, though. She called me back that afternoon, her voice all business. "Cameron tried logging into your email," she said. "I got a ping from your account security. You didn't give her access, right?" I frowned, my stomach twisting. "No way." "Thought so," she said. "I've sent her a Candist, certified mail and email. If she keeps it up, we've got grounds for harassment." Belle's been quiet so far, but I'm betting she's just regrouping. I thanked her, hung up, and changed every password I had, email, bank, even the streaming apps. It was tedious, but it felt good, like I was building a wall they couldn't climb. Then Belle tried her move. I was making a sandwich when I saw her post on X, a long thread about misunderstandings and exaggerations, painting herself as the victim. "I've always supported him," she wrote. "This is just a rough patch." I snorted, scrolling through it, but the replies weren't buying it. Someone had posted the chore list, must have snapped a pic at the party, and another link to the viral photo. "Rough patch," one comment read. "You left him with chores on his birthday, lady." I didn't need to chime in. The truth was out there, loud and clear. And people were rallying behind me. I wasn't just the guy who got screwed over anymore. I was the guy who fought back. And they loved it. Alicia called again that evening, updating me. "Separation papers are in progress," she said. "We'll file soon." "And the house?" "I'm pushing to keep it in your name."
You've paid most of the mortgage, right?
"Yeah," I said, remembering all those late nights at work to cover the bills while Belle shopped with Cameron. "Then we've got a strong case," she said. "Sit tight. This is just the start." I hung up, staring at the new keys on the table, the laptop still open with Belle's failing PR stunt. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving their mess. I was taking control. And it felt damn good. I woke up the next morning in my own bed, the new locks on the doors giving me a strange kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. The house was quiet. No slamming doors, no sharp voices barking orders. Just me, the hum of the fridge, and the faint chirp of birds outside. I rolled over, grabbed my phone off the nightstand, and saw the notifications piling up. Texts, emails, more ex-chatter about the party. I didn't dive in right away. I got up, shuffled to the kitchen, and made coffee, letting the routine settle me. The world was still spinning out there, but in here, I could breathe. For now, that was enough. I was halfway through my mug when the first big update hit. Miles texted me a screenshot from some local news site. "Sister-in-law fired after viral birthday scandal." My eyebrows shot up and I clicked the link. Cameron's company had cut her loose, citing conduct unbecoming after the ex-post and the chore list went public. The article didn't name me, but it didn't have to. Everyone knew. I leaned back in my chair, letting that sink in. She'd built her whole life around that job, strutting around like it made her untouchable. Now it was gone. And I didn't feel sorry for her, not one bit. She'd spent years treating me like dirt under her shoe. This was just the mess coming back to her. Belle's world was cracking too. I scrolled X later that morning and saw the chatter. Clients dropping her, deals falling through. She'd posted again a weak apology about learning from mistakes, but the replies were brutal. "Too late. You don't get to play victim now." I sipped my coffee, watching it unfold, feeling the weight of it all shift. They'd built their lives on this shiny fake image. Belle, the perfect businesswoman. Cameron, the cool sister. And I torn it down with one night, one list, one photo. I didn't gloat, didn't post anything myself. I didn't need to. The truth was doing the work for me. Then my phone buzzed with an email and I almost dropped the mug. It was from Clark Ellison, Belle's mentor, the big shot executive she'd worshipped for years. I opened it, my hands steady but my heart thumping. "I followed this mess online," he wrote. "You should have left her years ago. She never deserved your loyalty. Take care of yourself." I read it twice, then a third time, letting the words settle. Clark wasn't just some guest at the party. He was the guy Belle had spent her career trying to impress, the one she name-dropped every chance she got, and now he was on my side. I set the phone down, staring at the wall, a mix of shock and something else. Validation may be washing over me. It meant more than I'd expected. I was still processing that when the doorbell rang. I froze, half expecting Belle or Cameron to come storming back. But I checked the peephole and saw her, alone, standing on the porch. Her hair was messy, her eyes puffy like she'd been crying. And she wasn't in her usual polished getup, just jeans and a hoodie. I opened the door, keeping my face blank. "What do you want?" I asked, not stepping aside. She hugged her arms to her chest, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Can I come in?" she said, her voice shaky. "We need to talk." I didn't move. "Talk here," she swallowed, glancing around like she was afraid someone might see. "I'm sorry," she started, tears welling up. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. The trip, the list, it was Cameron's idea, and I just went along with it. You didn't think I'd fight back." I finished for her, my voice flat. She flinched, nodding. "I messed up," she said. "My clients are gone. Clark hates me. Everything's falling apart. I just want to fix this, please." I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I loved once, the woman I'd let walk all over me and felt nothing. No anger, no pity, just a cold, clear nothing. "You don't get to fix this," I said. "You made your choices. Live with them." Her face crumpled, more tears spilling out. "I still love you," she whispered. I shook my head. "You don't. You never did. Go home, Belle." She stood there a second longer, like she thought I'd cave, but I didn't. I shut the door, locked it with the new key, and walked back to the kitchen. My coffee was cold now, but I didn't care. I heard her car start up outside, then fade away. And that was it. She was gone. I sat down, opened my laptop, and checked my email again. Alicia had sent a draft of the separation papers, clean and simple, ready to file. I skimmed it, feeling the finality of it settle in. This wasn't just unraveling their lives. It was unraveling mine, too, pulling me free from the tangle I'd been stuck in for too long. By evening, the X-storm had calmed a little, but the damage was done. Cameron was jobless. Belle's business was tanking, and I was sitting here alone, but not lonely. I microwaved some leftovers, ate at the table, and let the quiet wrap around me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the next hit. I was done taking it, and they were done dishing it out. I woke up the next day with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The kind that comes when you finally stopped running from what's real. The house was still mine, the new locks holding firm, and the silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was mine to fill. I got out of bed, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open. Alicia's email from last night was still there, the separation papers attached, but I wasn't ready to sign yet. I wanted more than just a break. I wanted out clean and final. I sipped my coffee, the bitter taste waking me up, and dialed her number. "Morning," she said when she picked up, her voice sharp like always. "You ready to push this further?" "Yeah," I said. "Let's make it a divorce." She didn't miss a beat. "Smart move," she said, and I could hear her shuffling papers. "I'll rework the papers today." "You sure about alimony?" "You could ask for something. She's got income, even if it's tanking." I shook my head, even though she couldn't see. "No, I don't want her money. I just want her gone." Alicia paused, then said, "Fair enough. What about the house?" I looked around. The kitchen I'd painted, the floors I'd scrubbed, the walls I'd hung pictures on. "I want to keep it," I said. "I've paid most of it anyway." "Good," she replied. "We've got the records to prove it. I'll have the papers ready by noon. Courier them over." "Yeah," I said. "Thanks, Alicia." She hung up, and I set the phone down, feeling the decision lock into place. This was it, the last cut. The courier showed up right on time. The kid in a blue uniform handing me a thick envelope. I signed for it, shut the door, and tore it open at the table. The divorce papers stared back at me. Pages of legal words, dates, my name next to Belle's, all leading to one thing: freedom. I read through it slow, making sure it was right. No alimony, the house, and my name. A clean split. It was. I grabbed a pen, signed where Alicia had marked, and slid it back into the envelope. My hands didn't shake. My chest didn't tighten. It felt like checking off a box on a list I've been carrying too long. I called the courier back, watched him drive off with it, and that was that. Riel would get her copy soon, and then it would be real. I didn't expect her to show up again, not after yesterday. But around 3 p.m., I heard a car pull into the driveway. I looked out the window. Her car. Her alone again, stepping out with a bag slung over her shoulder. She didn't knock this time, just stood there, staring at the door like she could. Will it open? I opened it anyway, keeping my distance. What now? I asked, my voice tired but firm. She looked up, her eyes red but dry, her face pale. I got a call from my lawyer, she said, quiet. You're filing for divorce. Yeah, I said, not breaking eye contact. I am. She shifted her weight, clutching the bag tighter. Can we talk about it, just for a minute? I didn't want to let her in, but I stepped aside, nodding toward the living room. She walked past me, her step slow, and sat on the edge of the couch like she didn't belong there anymore. She didn't. I didn't want this, she said, staring at the floor. I know I screwed up, but I didn't think it'd end like this. I stayed standing, arms crossed. You didn't think, I said. That's the problem. You and Cameron treated me like a chore for years, and that list was just the last straw. I'm done, Belle. She looked up, her lip trembling. I can change, she said. I'll do better. We can fix it. I shook my head. You don't get it. I don't want to fix it. I want to be free of it. She sat there silent for a long stretch, then nodded like she'd finally heard me. Okay, she whispered, standing up. I'll go. She moved toward the door, but I stopped her with one last thing. I pulled out my phone, opened the text I'd sent her after the party, and added to it. You treated me like a chore, I typed, reading it aloud as I went. Now I've checked you off my list. I hit send, watched her phone buzz in her bag, and saw her flinch when she glanced at it. Goodbye, Belle, I said. She didn't say anything back, just walked out, got in her car, and drove away. I locked the door behind her, the new key clicking into place, and felt the air shift. It was over. I spent the rest of the day alone, not in a bad way, just taking it in. I cooked dinner, steak, nothing fancy, and ate at the table, the divorce papers envelope still sitting there like a trophy. My phone buzzed with a text from Miles. You good? And I replied, yeah, it's done. He sent back a thumbs up, and that was enough. I didn't need a crowd, didn't need noise. I just needed this. The quiet, the space, the knowing that I'd made my final move. They couldn't touch me anymore, and I was ready for whatever came next. I woke up a few weeks later to a morning that felt different. Not because it was my birthday again, but because it was mine in a way it hadn't been before. The divorce papers were filed. The house was officially in my name, and Belle and Cameron were out of my life for good. I decided to celebrate early, not with some big forced thing, but with something real. I got out of bed, the floor cool under my feet, and headed to the kitchen. Coffee first, always coffee. And then I started planning. No chore lists, no fake trips, just me and the people who actually gave a damn. I texted Miles and Trina.
Backyard barbecue tonight. You in? And they both shot back a quick hell yeah.
That was all I needed. The day moved slow, easy, like I had all the time in the world. I ran to the store, grabbed burgers, hot dogs, some buns, and a case of beer. Nothing fancy, just good stuff. Back home, I dragged the old grill out of the garage, scrubbed it down, and set it up in the backyard. The grass was a little overgrown. I hadn't mowed since the whole mess started, but it didn't bother me. I liked it wild, free, like it didn't have to answer to anyone. I pulled out a few folding chairs, set up a table with a cheap plastic cloth, and strung some old Christmas lights across the fence. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and that made it better than anything Belle ever planned. Miles showed up first, hauling a cooler of ice and a bag of chips. "Happy early birthday, man," he said, slapping my shoulder as he dropped the stuff by the grill. Trina rolled in next, carrying a tray of brownies she baked, her grin wide. "Couldn't let you have a party without dessert," she said, setting them down. We fired up the grill, the smell of charcoal and meat filling the air, and soon the backyard was alive. Laughter, the crack of beer cans opening, music playing low from Miles's phone. A few other folks trickled in, guys from work, a neighbor who'd heard about the party mess and wanted to shake my hand. It wasn't a big crowd, maybe 10 people, but it felt full, real, like the kind of night I'd forgotten I could have. We ate, talked, laughed. Nothing heavy, just easy stuff. Miles told a story about some dumb stunt we'd pulled in college, and Trina roasted me for burning a burger. But I didn't care. I flipped another one, watched the flames lick up, and felt light. Lighter than I had in years. My phone buzzed in my pocket and I pulled it out, expecting another X notification. It wasn't. It was a text from some random number. "Saw your story online. You inspired me to leave my toxic ex. Thanks." I stared at it, then scrolled up. More like it. Dozens over the past few days. People I didn't know saying I'd given them a push to walk away from their own messes. I didn't reply, just read them, letting it sink in. I wasn't a hero, wasn't trying to be, but it hit me anyway. Something I'd done for me had rippled out, touched lives I'd never see. The sun dipped low, painting the sky orange and pink, and Miles cranked the music up a notch. We sat around the table picking at the brownies, the air cooling off as night crept in. "You ever think about what's next?" Trina asked, leaning back in her chair, her beer half gone. I shrugged, taking a sip of mine. "Not really, just taking it as it comes." She nodded like that made sense, and Miles chimed in. "Long as it's not more chore lists, you're golden." We laughed, the sound carrying over the fence, and I felt it. Freedom. Real and solid, wrapping around me like the night air. Then the doorbell rang. I frowned, figuring everyone who mattered was already here. But I got up and headed inside. Through the peephole, I saw a delivery guy holding a box, so I opened the door. "You the birthday guy?" he asked, grinning. Yeah," I said, confused. He handed me the package, small, light, with my name on it, and took off. I brought it back to the yard, Miles and Trina crowding around as I tore it open. Inside was a folded black t-shirt, and when I shook it out, I laughed loud enough to startle the birds. Printed in bold white letters. "Trip for us? Cool. Party for me. Legendary." A note slipped out for Miles. "Wear it proud." I looked at him, grinning like an idiot, and he just shrugged, smirking. "Had to," he said. I pulled it on over my shirt, the fit perfect, and the group cheered, raising their drinks. We stayed out there late, the stars popping out one by one, the grill cooling down to embers. No fireworks in the sky, but it felt like they were inside me, bright, loud, alive. I didn't need a trip or a big show. I had this friends, a backyard, a life I'd taken back. And when I finally crawled into bed that night, the t-shirt still on, I slept, deep, peaceful, knowing I wasn't just free. I was me again.